Now, a family from Airdrie just won $50,000 in a national challenge to make their home more energy efficient. The Shannons beat out 7 other families from across the country to take the top prize in the Canadian Geographic's Live Net Zero Challenge. Samantha Shannon joins us now in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This is a bit of pinch me moment all itself, being in the studio
in the
here.
Studio. Well, we appreciate you coming in big time. It makes a big difference. So walk us through some of the big changes you made to your house. What did you do?
Yeah, the big ones that gets everybody excited is definitely having a big oil drilling rig in my front yard this August. We drilled down 5 boreholes, 250 feet, to install a ground source heat pump or a geothermal heat exchange system, as well as 42 solar panels. We also did air sealing practices such as aero barrier and aero seal on our HVAC system. And that was the big ones to the house for sure.
Okay. Okay, let's get into these one at a time. The geothermal system and this, drilling rig in your front yard.
Yeah.
What did it cost to do that? And then what's the benefit?
Yeah, so it's obviously cheaper if you can put that system in before you've built the house, just because the rigs have more space to maneuver. So retrofits can vary widely. But you're usually looking to start around the $60,000 mark. Mm-hmm. But soon as the field is installed, it's good for a minimum of 70 years. So it's going to long outlast us.
And how does it work?
It's essentially using the ground as a battery, really. The same way an air source heat pump will pull the heat energy from the air, we're pulling it from the ground, because once you get below the frost line, the ground temperature stays consistent. Around that depth, you're about 7 degrees. You can pull a lot of heat energy from 7 degrees Celsius to heat our house.
Right. And in the summer, 7 degrees Celsius can draw it down.
Well, actually, we're putting the whole system in reverse. So we essentially take the heat from the air and we pump it back into the ground. And once you take all the heat out of the air, you're left with cool air. Makes our air conditioning about 800% efficient. So for every 1 unit of electricity you put in, you get 8 units out.
Wow.
For heating, it's about 400% efficiency.
Okay. So you first identified the drilling rigs and the geothermal project. What was the second detail you gave that's a significant change?
Yeah, the solar panels.
Right, 42, did you say?
42 in total. So that's a 19.1 kilowatt array, which is quite large. With the Microgeneration Act here in Alberta, you can make about 110% of your annual capacity. And because we no longer heat with natural gas, it's all electricity, we are able to have a little bit more than most. It's actually double the national average, I believe.
What do you mean double? Explain.
Yeah. The average array, if you were to put it on your house, would be about 10 kilowatts, is usually quite large. And ours is 19. So it takes up our whole south side of our garage and the back of our house, and then just a few on the front. So it doesn't look all that fancy from curb appeal, but there's a lot there.
There's a lot going on. Can I ask how much you spent on that?
It's spendy.
Yeah, okay.
To do a deep energy retrofit, you're definitely looking at $100,000 and up, depending on what you want to do, and where your starting mark was. We're a 1980s house, so that's still a 2x4 frame construction. If you're doing it to a newer house, there's definitely been big advances in building codes that you don't have to make up such a gap that we did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you won $50,000. That helps a little bit. But how have you been thinking about the return on these investments in relation to your motivation to do these things?
Yeah, well, my husband's a business analyst, so the numbers were important, and we're not Rockefellers. This didn't come out of our piggy bank or our trust funds.
Right,
we don't have those kinds of things. So to fund it, we actually use the federal government's Greener Homes loan program. as well as we pulled equity from our house because we had already owned it for 5 years. But we really crunched the numbers to make sure that this would all work out. And even since we had started planning to when it's implemented, because of the rising costs in natural gas and electricity, our payoff period is shortening. We'll have a better idea once we've hit our full year mark of collecting data. But January alone, last year we were spending $400 and something on our utilities. This year I paid our electricity provider $200 and something all in.
Okay. So ballpark, what are you hoping, I guess, for a return on investment?
Usually for a solar install, because the economies of scale are coming down quite rapidly, you're looking at about 7 years. But with the way utility prices have been going up, we might be well under that 10-year mark altogether.
Okay. So what advice do you have for people who may want to make, their homes more energy efficient by a whole bunch or, in steps?
Yeah. So our story is getting a lot of news because it is big and flashy and not a lot of people do it. But we were doing this for years ahead of time with the little things like outlet gaskets to prevent air leakage through your outlets. But once you're ready to maybe look at what a full scale would look like, get a building scientist, an analyst to look at your house specifically. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Just because I did ground source heat pumps and solar on my house, it wouldn't work on my mother's house even. So there's different approaches, and they're the people that can really crunch the numbers and know what's the cutting edge techniques. And there's things where if you do them out of order, it will actually end up costing you more money in the long run. A lot of people think sustainability, I'm going to go buy solar panels. It's counterintuitive, but it's the last thing you should do because you want to reduce your energy consumption as much as possible so that you don't have to buy more panels than you actually need, because panels are still quite expensive. So it's better to work on the not so sexy parts of sustainability first, like air leakage and insulation.
Right. I guess you're never going to move.
We were considering the idea of moving, but now my house is too special. I really don't want to leave it.
I wondered about how it feels to live in this house that you're in this kind of interesting relationship with.
Yeah, I definitely have poured my heart and soul into it for the last couple of years. So it's a big piece of pride. And we bought the house originally 5 years ago because it's across the road from my children's elementary school. So we're really using the opportunity to use this as an educational tool. Because when we were in school, all we learned was reduce, reuse, recycle. Well, nowadays that's a little outdated. We need a little bit more than that. And when I was in elementary school, I would have loved to know that these technologies existed. Not only that, but to see it right across the road.
Yeah, interesting.
And see how it actually works.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming in to tell us all about it, to wise us up. Appreciate it, Samantha.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right. That's Samantha Shannon from Airdrie. She and her family were just awarded the $50,000 top prize of Canadian Geographic's Live Net Zero Challenge.